CBS News weather producer David Parkinson is tracking the storm's path and joins us with the latest. So, David, what is going on with Hurricane Florence?
I mean, this storm is setting all kinds of interesting records, right? So we went up to a Category 4, down to a tropical storm. We're back up to a Category 4 with 140-mile-an-hour winds, and that's where we are right now. The storm moving to the west-northwest. It's about 1,200 miles, just shy of that, off of the North Carolina coast. And as that storm turns, look at how well-defined that is. I mean, that is a good-looking storm, and that is not a good sign for the coast, because as this storm continues to get closer to the coast, it does not show any sign of weakening, and that really is the big concern.
So the states of South and North Carolina have declared a state of emergency. Which particular areas are facing the biggest threat?
North Carolina. So I have no idea what is going through the governor of South Carolina's mind. Every coastal resident in the state of South Carolina does not need to evacuate, and in fact, it is dangerous for them to do so.
Why is that?
Because two things. One, you're going to clog up the roads from the people who do need to in North Carolina. And two, if you're going inland to Raleigh or to some of these inland cities, that's where we're looking at a really serious freshwater flooding risk. So you're taking a chance of going from a coastal flood risk to a freshwater flooding risk. Here's the thing. If you're on the left side of this storm, it is dramatically weaker, and you don't have to worry about coastal flooding, because the storm is pushing the water away from the coast instead of pushing it into the coast. So that's why we're super concerned about places like Washington, like Jacksonville, like New Bern, all those places on the rivers and sounds of North Carolina. That's where you're going to be seeing the worst flooding. We're looking at inundation levels of 10 feet. So we have like a storm surge map that if they want to throw up, anywhere in purple on that storm surge map is, there you go, there it is. So anywhere in purple, 10 feet of water. That's an entire first floor of a building. And so you can see that goes all the way up those rivers, almost all the way to Greenville. And you can see right along that coast, Surf City, Topsail, right on up to Atlantic Beach, Morehead City, all of those places. That's where you need to be evacuating, and that's where you need to be doing it now. But again, don't evacuate to Raleigh. Don't evacuate to the Triangle. You've got to either go way southwest to Atlanta. You got to go way northeast to, well, Philadelphia or Baltimore or something like that. But if your escape plan was central or eastern Virginia or North Carolina, that's not a good place to go. But the time is now to make those preparations if you are in North Carolina for potentially being without power for weeks at a time, as well as lots of rain from freshwater and coastal flooding.
Because the winds associated with this, is that the situation? Well, is that potentially what we're looking at?
So that's the interesting thing about the wind with this storm. So the wind is going to be confined to a very small area. So it's not usually more than 25 miles from the center of the storm where you get those huge 130-mile-an-hour winds that level everything, right? Within about 100 miles, you're getting tropical storm or hurricane force winds. That's bad, but that's survivable, certainly for structures. But here's the interesting thing. If you take a look, here's the satellite map, and you can see here we've got a ridge of high pressure that's pushing it down, and then we've got this system that's pushing it up. So it's the squeeze play right on into North Carolina, and the track is forecasted to move just north of where it was forecasted earlier. And so the reason why we're concerned about this is it is now bringing more rain slowly into the system. The more it slows down, the worse this thing becomes inland, and that's how you go from a coastal disaster to an inland Harvey-type flooding disaster. And we're not talking about 60 inches of rain, but you don't need 60. 20 or 30 inches of rain is more than enough to cause catastrophic flooding inland in North Carolina.
Wow. So let's talk about what else is happening in the Pacific Ocean right now. You have Hurricane Olivia threatening Hawaii, and there are two other hurricanes forming in the Atlantic Ocean simultaneously. Is this something that would be an anomaly to have this much activity going on?
Well, so it's interesting. September 10th is the statistical peak of hurricane season. This is the day.
Right.
And so we've got 3 named hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin, although I'm going to be honest, Isaac's not looking so hot. So we may be down to 2. Right. But we did this last year with Irma, Maria, that group,
Harvey,
right?
Yeah.
So it happened last year. This is the time of year to do it. But to see this, and then to not only have this, but to also have Olivia, which will be potentially making landfall on Wednesday between Maui and the Big Island. And also, there's a typhoon that is impacting Guam and then now making its way to Taiwan and China. All of those things spell for a very active tropical situation right now. Fortunately, Things get a little bit quieter after this, but we're watching an area in the Gulf that could cause something next week. So this is when you need to be on alert. And if you haven't made a hurricane plan and you live on the coast, please do so now. And if you're in North Carolina, it's time to board up and get out.
All right. Really important advice. David Parkinson, thanks so much, David.
Sure thing.